So I started this channel to check out a variety of different tabletop role-playing games, and so I want to talk about some of the ones that I'm looking forward to checking out in the next little bit. Hello, I am the Jagged Wizard, and today I'm going to be talking about 9 tabletop role-playing games I can't wait to try out and why you might want to give them a try as well. Something about these games that I'm going to be talking about is that most of them are literally just here because I think the flavor of the system is awesome. So that's something that, it's a game in a genre that I really like, and for me it seems very interesting. There is a variety of genres here that I'm going to be talking about. That's just something to be aware of, is that it's a bunch of systems that have settings that I have never really been able to play in before, and I would be super excited to take a look at. The first one that I want to try out is Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the tabletop role-playing game. And this, frankly, is mostly inspired by the fact that my wife and I have recently been going through and watching Buffy the Vampire Slayer. It just seems like a very fun world, and as I've been looking at the system itself, it's based around rolling d10s, but it has a very cinematic flair to it. You have these things called drama points where you can influence the outcomes of your checks in order to create more drama for your character and to create more success when you feel like your character should be successful. It's really a much more narrative system than it is a dice rolling system, and I think it's really cool that it is this system where it's just about telling a really cool story, and I really think the flavor of the TV show lends itself really well towards that. The next game I want to talk about is called Timewatch. Timewatch is a system where you are agents of a group called Timewatch that is in charge of making sure that the timeline happens the way it's supposed to. And whether or not your character agrees with that is up to you. It takes all of your stereotypes of science fiction time travel stories and just throws all of them in there. The investigative system I think is really cool because it is an auto success. If your character is trained in any given skill, it's assumed that Timewatch, the organization you work for, has given you all of the knowledge you need to be successful at any given check. Other than that, it's based around a d6 system. All in all, I think it's a really cool rules light system that if you want to tell fun, wacky time travel stories, it's the perfect system for that. A lot of these are rules light systems, I'm realizing now, because Blades in the Dark is yet another rules light system that is based around a low fantasy industrial setting where you are a group of smugglers or heisters. It seems like it's a really good system where it's another very narrative based system. It does use d6 pooling as its main mechanic, but you also have the option to kind of change things around like you can in the Buffy game, so that things work out more favorably towards you and your party. I think it's a really cool game for heists and for roguish aspects. The next game that I really want to check out is called Absolute Power. And it's this game set in a post-Silver Age where people have lost their faith in superheroes and what a superhero means. Essentially, you get to create your own superhero, and you have to decide whether or not you're going to fight for good and truth and light and all the stereotypical hero things, or if you're going to curb to the dark side, to use a Star Wars metaphor. Another thing I noticed about this system that I really liked is that you have varying degrees of power. You have anything from characters who are subhuman power level to characters that are essentially gods. And I think it's really cool that the system has this variety of ways to tell stories about characters that don't necessarily have to be super cosmic level powerful superheroes. All in all, this system I think is really good for telling comic book stories. As for another very niche subject is Achtung, Cthulhu, which is a fascinating game, and I don't know who came up with it. But essentially, it's the Third Reich has risen to power because of occult and eldritch horror powers. And so you go in as a group of allied forces to try and take down the eldritch horrors that are powering the German superpower in World War II. And I think it's super cool. It has this mid-fantasy kind of vibe where there is magic and stuff, but you're also very grounded in that. And I think it's a really very niche system, but sounds like a lot of fun for the history buff in me. The next game is based off of another popular intellectual property, and it's called Dune Adventures in the Imperium. First off, I really like Dune. I think it's a really cool world, and I love all of the political intrigue. Dune has a really cool balance of grounded, but having these weird sci-fi fantasy elements. Adventures in the Imperium is a really cool take on that. It uses dice pooling of d20s where you're trying to roll low. So you're trying to roll ones as opposed to rolling 20s, which is kind of a switch in your brain for those of us that are used to games like D&D. I would be very intrigued to see how this system works, because I think it has a lot of really great opportunity for social interaction, especially with all the political intrigue that is very inherent in the Dune setting. Next up, we're going to go back to some more Eldritch Horror, is Call of Cthulhu. And yes, this is a big name, but I've never actually played it. It's a very rules-light system in that you show up and you roll a bunch of D100s, and that's about the only thing you'll do. But it really is a very quick-flowing system. It allows for characters to do things without having to go into a bunch of nitty-gritty rules, and I really like the appeal of that. And I think the Eldritch Horror elements are fascinating and could be a lot of fun to play with, especially the sanity. I love it when characters just slowly go insane over the course of adventuring. I think it's a lot of fun. And this idea of playing a underpowered character in a terrifying world has a lot of really cool elements that could be so much fun to play with as a GM or as a player. So one of the last games I'm going to talk about here is called Broken Tales, and oh my gosh, this game sounds awesome. So Broken Tales is a very rules-light system, but with such a cool premise. How it works is you're put in a fantasy world of all of these fairy tales, right? You have things like Rapunzel and Red Riding Hood. In this game, you play the villains because someone somewhere made a wish where all the fairy tales got swapped on their heads, and you're playing as these villains who have to overcome their evil urges to make the fairy tales work out how they should. And I think it's such a cool premise. So something I love is when TTRPGs give characters drawbacks that they have to fight against. It's something I love about sanity rules, is that your character in Call of Cthulhu, or probably Achtung Cthulhu, I haven't looked super closely, you have to fight against these things inside of you rather than just fight the evils outside. And I love it when any story has a character who very much is struggling to do the right thing but still chooses to do the right thing. And I love this idea of that. And I think Broken Tales has it built so well into the system. So the last game I'm going to talk about is one that I've been dying to play for 5 or 6 years at this point, and it's called Shadowrun. Shadowrun is a game where the world of fantasy has invaded the technological world we live in now. So essentially throughout history, it was normal, like the world we live in now, but some 10, 20, 30 years in the future from now, fantasy returned to the world and magic returned to the world. So you have this cool mix of technology and magic. Your characters are Shadowrunners, and they are essentially trying to take down opposing corporations by breaking in and corrupting and stealing information. And I love this feel. So these are some of the games I want to check out over the next, few months, years, however long it takes to get to them. Obviously, I've been building up this list for a while, and I'm super excited to start getting cracking on it. If you are interested in hearing more about any of these other games or other TTRPGs, please subscribe below, and I have other videos that I've reviewed several other TTRPGs, and I'm going to link my most recent one about Icon, which is a game developed by the same creator as Lancer. And it's a really cool system in a sci-fi fantasy world. You should totally check that out. If you want me to check out another system that I haven't already listed, please put it in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video and are enjoying this content, please give the video a like. Thank you so much for watching, and have a great day.